mastery of the mind is possible. I just want to
Yeah.
say that.
Yes.
I'm not saying I can do it,
No.
but definitely it would serve us greatly if we
Yep.
learnt to look at it and control our own thoughts.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thoughts can lead to disease as it can lead to health. So is that not motivation to think better? Thoughts are really powerful, as we all know. Everything begins with a thought, right? If you want to build a house, what do?
Think about
The
it.
first thing you do is think about it.
Yep.
It's really important to monitor how we think, especially if you're wanting to progress in your life. How you think is so important.
The other day, I watched a fascinating little snippet of a Gaia video, and it talked about how your thoughts can actually change and reprogram water. And it got me thinking, and that's why I thought this would be a really good conversation for you. How can thoughts change energy?
Thoughts lead us to emotions, right? So we have a thought, we have an emotion associated with that thought. Emotions are the driving, it's passion. And passion is energy. Passion gets our energy moving. And everything as we know it is energy. You look at an atom. An atom is made of an electron or electrons, protons, neutrons, and a lot of space, right? So what was that experiment where the wave particle experiment where they had the shutters? And do you remember that in high school?
I do. That was such a long time ago now. Yeah.
So we can influence how energy interacts with us basically through our consciousness. Our consciousness is our thoughts. Our thoughts become emotions. Our emotions drive the energy through our body. It's really important. Everything we think is an energetic exchange in our mind and in our bodies. In Chinese medicine, a lot of things are associated with the incorrect expression of energy. For instance, hypertension is too much energy surging up, and it's usually associated with the liver. Therefore, how we think is very important, and how we are is very important.
So how do you think that's reflective of people? How do you think it works at a general scale of projecting those good thoughts to have good energy? How do you think it kind of works?
Okay, so I don't believe that we have to project good thoughts. I think we just have to be ourselves.
Right.
And ourselves unobstructed by our ego and our thoughts.
Right.
So we have a heart and we have a mind. And our heart is quite calm, but what happens is our mind gets involved. And what actually happens is the mind kind of plays with the energy. Our thoughts create energy patterns which disturbs the mind.
Right.
And what we need to do is to calm that mind down so that it is kind of connected to your heart.
Yeah.
So that the conscious and the subconscious merge. And
Right.
that's where you find creation. It's not about changing our thoughts. It's about becoming more readily who we are already, intrinsically.
Right. So it's more about that projection of your inner self, of who you are really deep inside.
Yes.
Not what you're superficially putting on the outside, so to speak.
It's cutting down the crap. It's toning down the thoughts that runs rampant. It's about the monkey mind, as Buddhists would call it.
Right.
It's about becoming conscious of the monkey mind.
Yep.
And learning to observe it rather than let it run your body.
Right. And what happens, what kind of, how do you sort of control that when the mind does start to control it all and you become something that's not your inner self or your true self?
Oh, okay. There are many, many techniques. Okay. So if you're not a meditator, if you're suddenly overcome with thoughts and emotions, I would say if you're not a meditator, go out in the sun go for a walk, get that energy shifting, because when you're actually physically doing an action, the energy is forced into another endeavor rather than running rampant in your mind.
Yep.
So physical expressions of energy is actually a good way of getting rid of the energy in an inappropriate way.
Right.
If you are a meditator, like myself,
Yep.
you learn to sit and observe and slow down and quieten the mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people will tell me when they first come to me and say, you know, I might say to them, for instance, maybe you should slow your mind down and look at your thoughts, and maybe you should try meditation. They say, oh, I can't meditate. Well, if you're on this earth, you can meditate. I disagree with them completely.
Right.
Okay. If you think you can't, here's a really simple technique. Just observe your breath.
Right.
4 or 5 breaths.
Right.
Because in observing and pushing your focus to a certain area, you are directing your energy.
Right.
And as soon as you're directing your energy,
you're
leading it, and you're taking it away from something that is unproductive and doesn't serve you and moving it into something else.
Right. That kind of makes sense, because I guess too there's a bit of misinterpretation when people talk about meditation as well, because they sort of it's kind of attached to this sort of yogic guru-y ancient Chinese-y meditative, and a lot of people look at that and say, oh God, no, I can't do that, I've got too much on my plate, too much on my mind. And yet, as you just explained then, it could be just something really, really simple, 5 minutes of your day focusing on your breath, and that is a form of meditation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not exclusive to the Vedic or Indian or Chinese or Asian traditions. The Druids were doing it. All Indigenous cultures have a way of connecting to the unconscious. It's only really in our modern society where we're so disconnected from our unconscious and our connection to that something that is more truly who we are, that we believe that it is something that is unattainable, that is spiritual. But in some traditions, it's intrinsic to what their culture is.
Right. And do you think technology can impact on that as well and make the mind very unrested?
Definitely, of course it can. But technology can also help. I mean, look at all the apps and look at how readily available information is to us. It's about learning to use the tool. I mean, is fire good or bad?
Yeah, well, it depends who's using it.
And how it's used. You know, for instance, it can make a great meal. It can warm you in the middle of winter.
Yep.
But it's also very destructive.
Yes, so that's a really good analogy. And already you've changed mindset by saying that comment alone, that it's not about looking at technology as a negative thing and unresting the mind. You can use it to source ways to clear and rest the mind. So again, you're looking at it already with a different insight rather than just negative.
Well, having said I'm a long-term meditator, I'm also a long-term TikToker. I love TikTok.
Yeah, well,
so I am both. I actually have received a lot of information through TikTok, a lot of resources.
Yep.
Then I do end up scrolling through it in order to find those gems.
So a happy medium between that.
It's a happy medium. It's about discipline.
Yeah, right. So talk us through some of the ways that, you know, acupuncture or qi, because I know they're very energy based, how they can also help someone, you know, sort of get back to really focusing on that energy and using energy the right way.
So quite often what I find when people say they're stressed, for instance, is the mind is just running rampant. They're totally in their minds. Their mind is disconnected from their heart. One of the main roles then in that situation is really to slow that mind down. And in my experience, acupuncture is very good for that.
Right.
Acupuncture is an energetic art. It's all about moving energy. If you're going to go for an acupuncture treatment, you are saying, I put my trust in this practitioner to put the acupuncture points in that will stimulate a certain flow in my body that creates harmony.
Yeah.
Okay. So we say disharmony of both of the mind and the body occur when there is a blockage or when there's obstructions. And leading back to what we were saying before, thought patterns hold energy.
Right.
For instance, if you've got a thought pattern where you feel like a victim and you're angry at something, that is an energy. So, for instance, if you're angry, how would you say the energy is going? Like if I'm asking you, what direction is it going? Where is it going? What, is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going out? Is it going in? What energy associated with anger? What would you say?
Oh, what would I say? Well, I mean, it would be going up because it's making you angry, and it's kind of feel like your energy is getting a little out of control and scattered because you're angry.
So a lot of people that are constantly holding anger might have a ruddy face. They might be impulsive. They might have blood pressure issues. They might actually have heart issues as well. They might have heat issues. And constant anger creates obstructions. So the energy doesn't flow smoothly through the body, causing stagnation, which can cause pain.
Blockage.
And all sorts of other things. Insomnia.
Yes, that's a big one.
Insomnia is quite a common, I'm sorry, I'm just getting a text message.
Oh, that's okay.
Quite a common, I forgot to put it on silent. Sorry. So quite often insomnia is one of the first things that happens when we're either stressed or angry.
Right. Yeah, because you can't rest the mind, right? So the mind needs to rest in order to sleep.
Yeah, well, with all that heat up, the body's running hot, right?
Yep.
So at night time when we go to bed, the energy of the body needs to return to the heart and to the liver. For the blood returns to the liver, the Shen returns to the heart to be restored. And if it's too hot, the Shen cannot reside in the heart and the blood is just moving around, so it cannot be restored.
Right. That kind of makes sense because I know that there's, it's been statistically proven that our body naturally drops in temperature in order for us to sleep at night. And there's been, you know, those random record hot summer nights where it hasn't dropped below 30 and people wake up agitated and unrested. And so that in itself, if you're already stressed or angry about something, angry about the heat, angry about anything, and your body's not naturally cooling down from your thoughts, but also then from the surrounding heat, that's just like a double whammy. And that you can see how reflective that is. I remember there were studies, it was several years ago where we did have a night and it didn't drop below 35 degrees. And the amount of record of road rages that happened the following day, because it was already, people were already agitated and couldn't just, I guess, adjust to the idea that it's hot. We're in the middle of summer and it's hot and it's frustrating. I get it. I'm not a summer person. I get frustrated too with summer. But the road rage that happened the following day because of it, I mean, that in itself, would that be reflective of how those thoughts are reflecting on the energy, including them dealing with a lot of heat?
Absolutely. We are not distinct from our environment. Our environment affects us. Our thoughts affects us. Our consciousness affects us. Who we hang around affects us.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know, once you're on the path to understanding yourself and you're reacting not just to 3D reality, you're just trying to make something of your life and be more in control of it, then you will need to start to observe things in your life and to see how they're affecting you.
Yeah.
I mean, the next stage is becoming more resilient and learning to be more resilient with your environment, with other people. So then that really looks at you looking at yourself in a very deep way and becoming mindful and conscious of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it, when you think about how much can be affected by your thoughts and your energy, and how that's reflective of your energy levels, and then how that projects out there and what you end up receiving back. I mean, there's just, I know there's very little study about it, but you don't really need the studies, because if you did a general consensus and asked people, most people, when you're constantly putting out that negative energy, you're going to get that negative energy back. But if you put out the positive energy, you're most likely going to receive that positive energy back.
Absolutely. I think there was somebody, I think it's the Heart Math Institute, that was saying something exactly the same.
Right.
When we're connected to our heart and we radiate love, it is more perceived back by the people that are doing it. But most people expect that when they're doing good to the world, they feel that they need good to be done back. But really what happens is we need to be just emanating our pure essence, which is, joy and love, and connection. So that's why it's really important not to try to fake it or to push it, or to put it out there. I'm doing a good deed, therefore I expect someone to do a good deed back, or I love this person, therefore I expect this person to love me back. It's not like that. No. It's definitely about just being yourself with no expectation.
Yeah, I think that's the real difference there. You really nailed it. Determining what you're putting out there from your inner self to doing a good deed because you feel like that's going to be returned back to you. And if doing a good deed is not your natural core and it's not something that you would naturally do, you're not going to receive it back, like you said, because that's not coming from your inner self. And that doesn't make you a terrible person if you don't do a good deed. There are other ways that you can help people. There are other ways that you can be yourself and do it, not because it's a good deed, but because it might be the right thing to do.
Absolutely. I will definitely say that that lesson is still one I am learning. I am not immune to road rage.
No, of course not. It's hard in Sydney. It's hard in any city. Absolutely. Look, I do that too. Someone makes me crack and I have a short moment and then I remind myself, hold on a second. I don't know that person. I'm never going to see that person again. Just let them go. Let them go away. I'm never going to see them again. Let it go. It can be hard. I think most people who live in a city in a very busy area would all say the same thing. They try not to do it, but sometimes it just happens. It's a forever learning and growing experience.
Well, they say that Earth is the best school. It's the hardest school, but the best for accelerating your ascension.
Right.
So all of these are just, you don't judge yourself, even if you do get cranky and you flip someone the bird, whatever, just laugh it off, unless you do get into an altercation.
Yeah, well, but it never happened, so I keep it within my 4 doors.
It's about not living in the state of rage.
Yes.
Because rage will damage you.
Actually, it's interesting you say that, and that kind of comes back down to what we're talking about with your thoughts and your energy, is that a friend of mine read a study a few years ago. When people experience a situation that's agitating, and then they go, it could be hours later, and then they meet a friend or go home to their family and they retell that story, they don't just retell the story, they relive the story. And so they're permeating that energy again that they experienced at that moment. And so instead of just telling the story and say, oh, you won't believe what happened to me today, X, Y, Z, they sit there and go, oh, you won't believe what happened to me today. And they relive the entire situation, creating that energy level for them again, creating that stress again for themselves. And so I guess that comes down to what you're saying again. Yeah.
Which is absolutely about what thoughts we are allowing into our mind.
Yeah.
So a lot of yogis believe that all time exists at the same moment. So we can influence our realities.
Right.
By, if we have a situation that's in the past that we have negative emotions associated with,
Yep.
What I sometimes will do is rerun that script through my mind. But for instance, if something stressed me out, I'll rewrite, but I'll be giggling the whole way through.
Yeah, right.
It's just a new way of recording over
Yep.
what I thought was real,
Yep.
and just kind of putting a different perspective on it, because
Yep.
obviously we are looking at from perspective,
Yeah.
and our higher self sees the whole.
Yep.
So we just got to go a bit higher and see the higher level of everything, and just learn to put it into perspective. So our thoughts aren't kind of constantly driving us into destructive thought patterns.
No, it makes absolute sense. And I guess that comes back to the mini documentary that I mentioned at the beginning of this interview with Gaia, where they had some incredible scientists, a specialist in Japan who works with water and the science behind water. And they had a glass of water, and they sat meditation gurus around the water and had them project all these negative thoughts into this jar of water. And then they went and took the water away to test it. And what I didn't realize is, I guess, very similar to snowflakes, that within the body of water, there's crystallization that still occurs within the water. It's just microscopic. We can't see it with our eye. And every single crystal was broken and shattered and not non-beautiful. It was just in a horrid, disformed way because of the negative energy that was being driven into the water. They then got a fresh glass of jar of water, got the same meditation people to sit around it, and they projected, like you mentioned, love and joy and happiness and all these beautiful little sort of feelings and sensations that we are all programmed, not even programmed, we all naturally do as humans. And the crystallization in the water was absolutely spectacular. It looked like snowflakes. They were beautiful. And that in itself is proof of how much thought can change energy, and how energy can change thought, and vice versa. I mean, it was incredible to watch. So everything you say just makes sense.
Absolutely. So a lot of yogis in India, I don't know if there's one, I can't think of his name, but he's got the curly hair. I can't, his name just eludes me right now, but he's mastered reality to such a point where he actually can perform tricks. Well, I shouldn't say tricks, where he can manifest things from thin air. Mastery of the mind is possible. I just want to say that.
Yes.
I'm not saying I can do it.
No.
But definitely it would serve us greatly if we learnt to look at it and control our own thoughts. Definitely.
Yeah.
Thoughts can lead to disease as it can lead to health. So is that not motivation to think better?
And I think you've nailed it, where you've just spoken about health, and how much that can affect your health. Because at the end of the day, we all know that stress and anger and all those really negative energies do lead to multiple sicknesses, like you said, high blood pressure, heart attacks, issues with the head, the brain, everything. I mean, there's nothing good about it, really, is there?
No, definitely not. And holding grudges definitely doesn't help you. You know, for instance, you might feel like you will not forgive somebody for doing such and such to you, but you're really damaging yourself by holding your energy a certain way.
Yep.
Okay. So, for instance, anger. Absolutely. So constant anger will stagnate the energy in your body, eventually create a lot of heat, but it will stagnate the energy. We call it liver qi stagnation, which can eventually lead to liver blood stagnation. And that's how things such as growths can occur, because the liver blood becomes masses within the body.
Yeah.
So all kind of masses are usually phlegm or blood accumulation that isn't moved by the body. Right. Now, trauma can cause that. For instance, if you got struck by something, it can cause liver qi stagnation and phlegm stagnation and a whole lot of other stuff, because trauma does that to the energy flow. But thoughts can do it as well. Thoughts and emotions as well.
Yeah. So to tell me, what sort of things could someone do and practice very easily in their everyday life to kind of, you know, like you said, none of us are innocent of it. We all have our moments. What are some techniques, some little tips and tricks that we can do to kind of bring us back down, to sort of let that go, basically, and just really focus on who we are and just dispel any of that negative energy?
When I'm really feeling like I can't get out of a rut, I'll either do two things. I mean, actually, one of three things. I'll either meditate, but just assuming you can't meditate, I'll go for a walk.
Yep.
Because a walk is a physical motion which moves your energy body, right?
Yep.
When you're walking, you have to devote some of your energy, your consciousness, and your physical body into actually putting on those shoes, walking out the front door,
Yep.
and doing your walk.
Right.
So that energy cannot be directed into negativity.
Yep.
Another thing I might do is breath work. Breath work or deep breathing is
Yep.
associated with the movement of energy through your body.
Okay.
The word qigong, for instance, is energy work. So qi is like life force.
Yep.
And gong is the cultivation or the energy work. So breathing
Yep.
gives us a lot of qi.
Yep.
Is the majority of our qi. Some of the qi comes from the food and the water that we eat and drink.
Yep.
But most of it is derived from the air that we breathe.
Okay.
So if we know that qi gong is derived from air that we breathe and the food that we eat and the water that we drink, then
Yep.
we know that the majority of energy
Yep.
from qi is derived through breathing.
Right.
So breath work is very powerful
Yep.
for moving energy through the body.
Right. Okay.
A lot of martial arts, a lot of qigong exercises, a lot of tai chi is about moving that energy. So, for instance, if your energy centers are all running clearly and flowing smoothly,
Yep.
you cannot hold a state such as anger or sadness or fear or whatever
Yep.
in your body for long, because
Yeah.
it is constantly transmuted.
Yep.
The meditation,
Yep.
light exercise,
Yep.
breath work,
Yep.
and it's that I would say that those are the most important things. I would say, choose your friends wisely, choose your friends that are elevate you.
Yep.
Read books that inspire you.
Yep.
Be careful of the social media or the media, not even just social media, but the media that you follow.
Yes.
Because there's a lot out there that takes us away from being ourselves. And there's a lot that distracts us from really just looking at ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's where the healing really begins, is by looking at ourselves.
Right. So looking deep within and seeing, right, where does that change need to come from, and where do I start? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, really inspiring.
Yeah. It's not about, I would say it's not about having happy thoughts. It's about losing the thoughts.